Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. It is May 23rd, 2019. My name's Morgan Colby. I got Rick, as always, right across from me.
What's up?
On this episode of the Fantasy Champions Podcast, we give you our 11 to 20 wide receiver rankings, where we finish up our top 20 wide receiver rankings on this show. But first, be sure to do the following. Go to Twitter and like us on Twitter at the FF Champs. Go to Instagram, like us on there at the Fantasy Champions, and go to Facebook.com/the Fantasy Champions to like us over there. Subscribe wherever you listen: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher. You can go on YouTube and subscribe. Click the bell on YouTube for notifications. Leave a review and share this podcast with your friends. Let's start off with a quick icebreaker question before we get into our wide receiver rankings. This is actually a really interesting, intriguing question that a lot of people overlook this part of fantasy football quite a bit.
Yeah.
But what is your number one trade tip? What is your number one tip for making trades in fantasy football?
So trades do get overlooked. I think it's almost what wins leagues a lot of the times.
Yeah.
It's almost
our league.
More in our league, it's more important than the draft. That's for sure.
Yeah.
What I'd say about trades is knowing your trade partner, though, I think is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Meaning, if you can get more out of a guy, if you, dare I say, fleece, take advantage of that. Like, know who if you're trading with a guy that has similar, trade interests with you.
Yeah.
Don't try to overdo it, but at the same time, don't give in. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because you know you're dealing with someone who knows their stuff.
Right.
So I think knowing it's the first step, and I think it's a very important step of just knowing your trade partner.
I think also that helps too with knowing your trade partner is that if you understand, like, you know the teammates in your league and understand that, or not the teammates, know the other owners in your league.
Opponents.
Yeah, the other opponents in your league. Know the opponents in your league and like understand that. Like, say one guy really, really likes Devontae Adams.
Right.
Like, they love Devontae Adams. Play to that.
Particular
Draft.
players, correct. Yeah.
I've had drafts where I draft guys not in any form or fashion to help my fantasy team, but to knowing that they're a guy that I should trade away. Sometimes it works.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't. But you draft a guy specifically because you know that a team... I just got a phone call. You know that a team... wants a specific player, and you know you can probably get more out of them than anyone else.
Like, quickly for an example, if you were in
Yeah.
any league with me last year, you're trying to trade with me, and you have Christian McCaffrey on your team, you're probably going to win that trade.
Yeah, definitely. So there are guys that everyone loves, and understanding your league mates and knowing that certain guys are going to be. So this is one of the biggest things is that certain guys are going to be extremely hard to negotiate with.
Yeah.
Some guys are going to overvalue their players a lot. And so understanding that certain teams have that problem, you have to approach trades differently with every single team.
Yep.
Some people are easier to trade with. It's just a simple fact. Some people are just wicked easy to trade with. They're like, oh, yeah, I'll make a deal. Some people are more willing, and some people just aren't. They're like, I'm going to hold on to my team.
Even if they're 0-8.
Yeah, even if they're 0-8. And they're like, I'm holding on. I'm getting that one win.
Ride or die.
It's true. So my number one trade tip is, and this is extremely important. I get it's not a tip more than a strategy.
Okay.
So never offer exactly what you want in the trade as the first
negotiate.
Offer. Go into the trade with a plan. So what sometimes what I like to do, for some people I don't do this, for some people I do, it depends on the person. But go into a trade and say, it sounds ridiculous, but you start off with writing down what you would like to get the person for. So write them down and say, okay, what do you want to get for, say you're trying to trade for DeAndre Hopkins. You're like, okay, I want this, I'm going to give up this guy, and this guy. This is the ideal deal. This is what I want.
Yeah.
Then you go back and you say, all right, what's the low ball? So you write down the low ball, and then you write down step 2 as like your second offer. So then When you get to your offer, it looks a little more spicy to that person. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay.
So you offer the crappy deal first, and they go, no, man, I'm not going to take that. You know they're not going to take it. And if they take it, you just lucked out. Sometimes that you get that first step, they accept, and you're like, wow. So you get that. They say no. Then you offer a little bit more appetizing of a deal. You make them think. They didn't originally want to offer. They didn't originally want to negotiate for Hopkins. They didn't want to give him up. But now you're like, you get them thinking, oh, like that's a guy. He moved up a little bit, and you have to make the difference between that low ball offer and the second offer look completely different. Like it has to be a huge step. So then they know you're serious. And then by the time you get to that third deal, they either are not going to trade altogether, or you got them hook, line, and sinker, and they're going to make a deal.
I don't disagree with you at all. I think that's a good strategy. That's kind of what real professionals do, which is something that none of us are.
For fantasy, people just playing fantasy football.
Like even in like any major sport, if you offer like a player a contract, for example, typically the first offer is not very good.
It's not the biggest one.
Yeah. And they slowly build up to the point where it's like, okay, this is so like from the player or the person receiving the contract, their standpoint is, oh, now I'm finally getting a good deal.
Right.
But from the person giving the contract, it was the
that's
deal
what
they wanted the whole time. Right. So I agree with your strategy. It's a good strategy. And both these strategies / tips, you do need to use when making trades.
I think another thing, another side note is to just respect the other person you're trading with. I think people get far too emotional in trade negotiations. But when I say respect the other person, you honestly, the only way you're going to get, sometimes you're going to run into an idiot who's going to get you. Be
respectful. Yeah. Sometimes you're going to run into an idiot.
Sometimes you're going to run into an idiot who gives you you get Hopkins and you give up, 2 tight ends. Like there's going to, that sounds ridiculous, but it's happened. Trust me. You get people who make really dumb deals and it looks like a fleece, and the rest of the league is like, you're an idiot. He can't trade anymore. Stop trading with him. Like that kind of stuff. And
are you speaking from personal
experience? Yeah. But you offer a deal, like I said, you offer the low ball and they take it right away, and you're like, okay, you absolutely fleeced them and you know it. Respect the other team and understand, it has to be the only way you're going to make deals a lot of the time. And, sometimes, like I said, you'll get that crazy deal. But the only way you're going to make deals a lot of the time for trades is going to be respecting the other person and looking them in the eye and honestly trying to help their team as well. Because obviously you're looking for something, they're looking for something, and it sounds real.
You have to look at it from both sides.
It sounds going completely against the grain. But in order to make successful trades in fantasy, you absolutely have to look at the other person and say, is this a deal that I would accept? And if it is, then you're either like, that's the first thing I do when I send deals. Like when I get to that last trade offer and the person's kind of hesitant on it. Sometimes, like last year, I was giving up. I was actually pushing in trades, giving up a lot more than I probably should. Yeah. And some deals worked out and some deals didn't. But there were just times where I was pushing on a couple of different teams. I was pushing the bounds of like even overpaying for a guy, like a lot overpaying for a guy. And they weren't like, I was overpaying by like 5 players on James Conner, and a team still wouldn't take the deal. And there were times where I test certain players and I go, okay, well, how far are they going to take it with this guy?
Yeah.
Just to know what can I actually get done with this team, and to know I'm not going to negotiate with them in the future. But respect the team. Some people just overvalue their players, and that's what's going to happen. You can't get pissed off. You can't get upset about it, even though I get very frustrated when people overvalue their guys. But respecting the other team is so important, because if you do respect them, in turn they'll respect you. Yeah. And if you look at their team and you're trying to help each other out, like the worst thing that can happen for you, and I'm rambling, but the worst thing that can happen for you is that you offer a deal and then they say no and you get pissed off and then you get into a fighting match. Does that make you want to negotiate with that team anymore? No. So respect the other, like if you respect the other team and you say, all right, that's fine. That's all right. We don't need to, we don't have to do the deal. It's all right. Whatever, just move on. They're going to respect you more for it, and it'll open up trade, windows in the future. I make it sound extremely serious, but
so you clearly you want to do a fantasy show about making trades, don't you?
Yeah, just an entire show on trades.
We could do it. Me and you could do it.
100%. Let's get into our early 2019 wide receiver rankings. We're going to discuss 11 through 20 and burn through those, and then we move on to tight ends. Can't believe it.
Oh, wow.
Rankings are almost over, and then our first mock
That's
draft.
going to be fun.
That's going to be fun. So number 11 on our rankings, we have Keenan Allen. Just so we know, just so everyone knows, 11, 12, 13, and 14 are exactly the same for ECR and me and Rick's ranks. So
Wow, that's...
yeah.
We don't have to talk about it too much then.
Yeah. So Keenan Allen, he's a guy that I love Keenan Allen.
We know.
We know. Keenan Allen is a fantastic wide receiver. He is the wide receiver 1 in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
He gets a lot of targets. He gets a lot of opportunity. He's a weird wide receiver in that it takes him half a season to get into a groove.
Yeah,
And
especially last year.
Last year and the year before, he was like mediocre the first half of the season, and then the second half of the year, he came out and he was like, getting 15 fantasy points a game. It was ridiculous. He's extremely consistent, and I felt all last year as I was following the ECR and as I was following him in drafts and all of that stuff. I felt last year he was ranked far too high. Like I remember seeing him 6 or 7 in fantasy football rankings last year, and that was a little bit too high. This is where I would be okay with him. He's talented enough to be there. I think he could finish as a wide receiver 1 this year, but he's 11 to me because I think he's a great wide receiver 2. I think he's like, he's like the prototypical like number 2 wide receiver on your fantasy team. I would absolutely love having Keenan Allen right now. Just to throw this out there, he's getting picked 308 according to the fantasy football calculator.
Yeah, I mean, if you have Keenan Allen, as you said, as your second wide receiver, you're feeling pretty good about that. And I know like some pros and cons, like Phillip Rivers is getting a year older, so that kind of stinks. But then you look Tyrell Williams, who got a decent amount of targets last year, left for Oakland. I like Keenan Allen, and I think I agree with you. Last year he was getting overvalued a little bit, but here at 11 I think is a perfect spot.
Yeah.
Heck, I might even switch him with T.Y. Hilton. I mean, I'm debating about that eternally right now, but Keenan Allen is like the perfect second wide receiver. He's a good player. He's talented. He's a second half performer, which I personally like. So I'm a fan of Keenan Allen.
Yeah, he's a beast. Number 2 on our number 12. How do I keep doing this?
Well, it's actually pretty easy.
Yeah. Amari Cooper is our number 12 wide receiver. Amari Cooper is hard.
He is.
He's an interesting little puzzle piece. Now, a lot of people have been so burned by Amari Cooper that they are not even going to try to draft him, not even going to try to go after him. They don't want Amari Cooper. And I think that is going to be a beneficial thing for a lot of fantasy owners because it's going to affect his ADP.
Yeah.
He's already getting drafted as a pick 403 in 10-team. Is this a 10-team league? Yes, 10-team. Pick 403. So, it's in that round, you're seeing a run on a major, according to the ADP, you're seeing a major run on running back start. That's the perfect opportunity to snag yourself a secretive wide receiver while everyone else is sweating about running backs they didn't get. Yeah, exactly. That's, perfect time. Because that's like a tier 3 wide receiver right there, and everyone's emptying tier 4 and 5 of running backs, and you're getting a tier 3 wide receiver. I mean, that would be fantastic. Now, Amari Cooper can finish as a wide receiver 1. You have to understand that Amari Cooper is now in the Dallas Cowboys offense as the wide receiver 1. Last year, and I don't want to do this to you, but I'm going to do it. Last year, after the trade, which I think was, week 10? Week 10 on, I believe. We'll just go with that.
Week 9, I think it was, but
Amari Cooper was the wide receiver 8 from week 10 to 17. And so that is what Amari Cooper can do. He had some ridiculous games. He had some up and downs. Well, that's his big problem. But I think, so for me, Amari Cooper, and this is hard for me to say, but Amari Cooper can be a high-end, he could be a tier 2 wide receiver. next year. He could definitely be a tier 2 wide receiver. And I think that out of the guys that are getting picked around this area, he has the talent to be a tier 2, tier 1 wide receiver. If you get him and he does that on the Dallas Cowboys this year, you literally had the perfect draft pick in the 3rd or 4th round.
Right.
But I don't think that's going to happen. I do think he's going to finish as the 8th or 9th best wide receiver next year. I have him ranked 12 just because of the inconsistencies.
Okay, yeah. See, Cooper is he's so talented. He's in a perfect situation. But
he'll still blow it.
He still somehow gets you 30 points one week and gets you 4 the next.
4 the next. Yep.
How does it...
But the Amari Cooper is poor man Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, he is. Really.
I got my comparisons out today.
But what I will say is, at this point, if you're taking, look at a lot of the receivers going around him, especially behind him. There's a lot of question marks. There's a lot of inconsistencies. There's a lot of injury histories with those guys. Yeah. So if you're taking any wide receiver at this point, and really any player once you get out of the 3rd round, it starts there's question marks with everybody. Question marks.
It's just how much risk do you want to take with Cooper?
Right. But the reward for Cooper will be high.
Yeah.
If he turns out to be what he can be.
What you need to try to figure out is, what is Cooper's floor?
That is a good question.
Because if his floor is wide receiver 3, then you're taking a massive, massive risk with your 4th pick. If his floor is a high-end, mid-range to high-end wide receiver 2, is it worth it?
Then yes. Yeah, absolutely. But it's still, man. Even if he is that, it's going to be one of those things where his points will be inflated.
Yeah.
Because he will get those 30-point weeks where everybody freaks out. But then when you need him the most, he'll get 4 fantasy points.
It's easier for me because here's what happened.
Because you like the Cowboys?
Don't do me like that. My 2 favorite teams in the NFL are the 2 most hated franchises in league.
Oh yeah. You go out in public.
Amari,
you go out in public and say that the Patriots and Cowboys are your 2 favorite teams. Chances of you
surviving,
dying,
not very good. Yeah. Amari Cooper, for me, is a guy that I have never been burned by Cooper, so it's easier for me not to hate him.
You've just watched the burning from the outside. I just watched
the burning from the outside. Yeah. There was one team in our league that always drafted Amari Cooper. Always held him on the team. Relied on him and just got so sick of it that they dropped him. I was halfway through the season last year, right before the trade. They just dropped him. And I was like, it's Amari Cooper. Everyone was like, I ain't picking up Amari Cooper. So I was like, all right, I'll just throw him on the bottom of my roster. A week later, gets traded to the Cowboys, and it was like gold. And then he had a 30-point game, and I was like, this is too much. Yeah. So then I traded him. I can't even remember what for.
It was decent, though, wasn't it? Yeah, I think it was part of a package.
As a part of a package, but I ended up trading him away, and that's when he really went off. And so I like Amari Cooper. I just, like I said, it's the inconsistent play that really hurts, is that if he goes out this season and it's almost like consistent. He's consistent in having a bust out week and then a trash week.
Right, yeah.
And so it's if he can get more consistent, and get on the weeks that he doesn't this is what makes Ezekiel Elliott as a running back so good, is that he'll have his 30-point weeks, but then the rest of the time it's 15, and that's what Cooper needs to do. He needs to do 12, 12, 12, 30, 12, 12, 12, 30. And you do that, that's what I want to see. And drafting him in the 4th round, I say, okay, I'm going to use him as my wide receiver 2. He could actually work out to be a wide receiver 1 in the long run. That would be a great situation. The number 13 ranked. I need to fix the numbering system on my notes. But the Adam Thielen is the number 13 ranked wide receiver. Him and Diggs, and
you want to just group these two?
We'll group these two together because it's really a mess. Everyone in the fantasy football community, shout out to everyone in the fantasy football community, ranks these 2 guys together. They're literally in a box.
Each person has their guy.
Yeah, each person.
Somebody's
has their
a fan of Thielen. The person next to them is a fan of Diggs.
Yep. Now, if you had to ask me to choose one, I would choose Diggs. But I ranked Thielen higher than him, and the reason why is because I think Thielen is the more consistent receiver.
Right, I'm the exact same. I have the exact same opinion as you.
I think Diggs has potential to be a top receiver, but I don't know if he can get there. The interesting thing for me, and this is the hardest part about Adam Thielen, is that I want to target him so much in my drafts, but I'm trying to temper my excitement of Thielen because of what happened last year. Through the first 8 weeks of the season, first 8 games that he played, he was perfect, fantastic. He was the best wide receiver in fantasy. Like, honest to God, you go back, you look at the numbers, go to fantasypros.com, go to fantasy leaders, and figure that out.
Double digits every week.
Yeah, double digits every week. He's perfect. Even you look at the targets. He was getting 10 to 12 targets every single week. Something happened midway through the season, and I don't know if somebody got hurt. I don't know if it was an offensive lineman. I don't know what happened, but it switched. Adam Thielen went from getting 12 targets a game to like 6-7 targets a game, and Stefon Diggs jumped up to like 12 targets a game, and basically the roles reversed. And I don't know if it was a coaching decision. I have no idea why that happened. I've been trying to figure it out for months. Can't figure it out for the life of me.
Yeah.
But Diggs switched. Now, if that continues, Thielen is a wide receiver 3. And that is concerning that if you draft Thielen as high as he's getting drafted right now, which is a 4th-round pick, actually Diggs is getting drafted higher. I apologize. Where's Thielen getting drafted here?
Thielen is, I think...
Oh, he's getting drafted at 303, which is
really
crazy.
Yeah, that's too high for me.
So at 13, that's high enough for me to scratch him off my draft board when he gets drafted in the 3rd round, because I ain't drafting him in the 3rd round. Like I said, Adam Thielen and Stefon Diggs, we're grouping them together. I would choose Diggs over Thielen, and right now, Diggs is where Thielen should be. Exactly where he should be. 4th round, 406. Like, that is where Adam Thielen can be. I like Adam Thielen, and in some mocks, I've been forced to draft him in the 3rd round, and I shouldn't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. I mean, so both these guys are so, like, huge question marks, and kind of leads into the next group of receivers that are just all question marks. And really, like I said, with Amari Cooper, next group of players.
Yeah.
Diggs, I agree with you. I think he has the higher upside, which is why I'd probably, if I was forced into a situation, I'd pick Diggs over Thielen. But I also have Thielen ranked higher because I think he's probably more of a sure thing than Diggs. Like, Thielen will...
Like, if Thielen is Thielen like he was at the beginning of the season last year.
Yeah, even if he's not quite that, I think he'll be better than what he was. Like, somewhere in between.
Yeah.
Not quite what he was in the first half, but not as bad as he was in the second half. And, if these rumors come out and the Vikings do end up trading Kyle Rudolph, maybe that opens up more opportunity for both Diggs and Thielen.
Thielen, yeah.
I mean, I think both those guys... If you're picking either one of them, it's really a preference, honestly.
Yeah.
It's like which guy do you personally think will be better?
Yeah.
But just don't pick Thielen in the 3rd round.
Yeah, don't pick Thielen in the 3rd round.
Especially early 3rd round.
So for me, it's, it honestly has become that, which guy do you choose situation.
Yeah.
And I think for both of us it is Diggs, because there's 2 parts of it. Which player do you think is going to be better next year? And then...
It's so close.
It's so close, yeah. But which player do you think is going to be better next year? And then there's the question of who has more value. So if I get all these teams someday statted out, all these players, it'll take me 6 years. And I find out that I have Diggs getting more fantasy points than Adam Thielen, then God, no, I'm not drafting Adam Thielen in the 3rd round. I'm going to be drafting Stefon Diggs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, but I think right now, as of right now, we don't know if this is going to shift or change, but as of right now, Stefon Diggs has more value. I'm drafting Stefon Diggs over Adam Thielen at this point, only because Adam Thielen is a 3rd round pick and Stefon Diggs is a late 4th round pick. So you get more value. For Diggs.
Yeah, I get what
the value is better. So for me, I'm targeting Diggs. Diggs is our 14th wide receiver. I would rather take him over Adam Thielen. I just don't know that the question marks are there. You know what Diggs is. For the most part, we know what we're going to get from Diggs. From Thielen, it's a little bit confusing.
Is it first half Thielen or second half Thielen?
Right, and that's what that's
although
the
I think if he is there, like in the 3rd round, and going by your signature strategy of drafting a guy to trade him, Thielen might be one of those guys. Yeah, where there's probably going to be someone or 2 people in your league that really like Thielen.
Yeah.
And you can take him and trade him to one of those teams.
As the fantasy champions, we advise you not to draft Adam Thielen, and
not in the third round.
Not in the third round, at least. And you should probably be drafting Stefan Diggs, but there might be that situation because we've been studying this since the end of last season. So we understand Adam Thielen has a lot of question marks, whereas Joe Schmo rolling up to the draft party with the notes he just took 2 hours ago on a sticky note is sitting there going, I'm going to get Thielen. Yeah, let's go. Third round, he drafts him.
Yeah, Joe Schmo, who got eliminated in the week 8 last year, but his best player was Adam Thielen, so he knows Thielen was a beast in the first half.
It's very true. Another guy, number 15 on our list, Cooper Kupp. This was a guy I actually had at 15. And then I switched back to 17 when I found out some interesting information about Robert Woods.
Okay.
I don't know if I should talk about the information now or later, but one of the interesting things with the Los Angeles Rams is that I started scouting out the Bengals and I started looking at Zach Taylor and when he was with the Rams, and so I started looking into, because everything is a little treasure hunt for statistics. So I found out a lot about the Rams, and one of the interesting things that I found out is that they spread to their wide receivers very efficiently when Cooper Kupp is in that offense. The wide receiver 1, who was Brandon Cooks at the time, had 33 targets. The wide receiver 2, who was Robert Woods, who had 41 targets. And then the slot receiver, Cooper Kupp, had 40 targets. So 25% to the wide receiver 2, 24% to the wide receiver 3, and then the number 1 wide receiver on the depth chart had 33 targets. People who are ranking Brandon Cooks extremely high right now can take a seat because that's not a good thing. But anyway, we will talk about 3 Rams wide receivers as wide receiver 2
crazy,
right now.
actually,
I don't even know
honestly.
I want to put one in there because I think only one's going to land as a wide receiver 2 this year. The question is it Cooper Kupp or is it Robert Woods? I like Cooper Kupp. I really do. And if he gets to that, you prorate that because that's 6 weeks right there. That's just the first 6 weeks of the season. You prorate that out to a full season. A full 16 games. And he'll have, Cooper Kupp will have anywhere between 100 to 110 targets, which if he does that, I think he is a high-end wide receiver too, and he's a perfect second wide receiver on your team, especially a guy who you can draft in the 5th round. So for me, I like Cooper Kupp. I wanted him at 15, but some interesting information that I got about Cooper Kupp will probably change that for me.
Yeah, I mean, I like Cooper Kupp too. I think people are kind of undervaluing him.
The torn ACL is hurting his value.
The torn ACL does hurt. The fact that he's in an offense with 2 very good wide receivers as well hurts him. But, I mean, I think people forget that Jared Goff's favorite target in that offense
is Cooper Kupp and Brandon Cooks. I mean, Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods.
Yeah, but Kupp is also like his buddy. It's his security blanket too. That's where he goes to in third down situations when he's out there. And I think once Cooper Kupp comes, he's the Edelman of that offense essentially. Right. And once Cooper Kupp comes back this season, I think the Rams are going to use him.
If the ACL doesn't hurt him,
the Rams are going to use him a lot, and I don't think it will. I think it happened early enough in the season where he can make a full recovery.
After you get
this year.
This is what I like about Cooper Kupp, and I'm okay with having him 15 on our rankings. I personally had him 17, and the ECR has him 19. So that shows you.
Well, that's what I really like about Cooper Kupp.
How everyone feels about Cooper Kupp.
Yeah,
and so I think the ACL injury is a big contributor of him being 19 because if you look at the weeks that he played, he was a wide receiver. He was a high-end wide receiver too. And he played very, very, very well. I think I looked at the numbers, and he was like wide receiver 10 earlier today when we were looking at the numbers. But I think that for Cooper Kupp, it's interesting. He's an intriguing guy to watch. He's like you said, a lot of risk. After this tier is a lot of risk. There's a lot of risky guys.
Yeah.
But I think you could put Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods kind of in the same conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
we have Woods at 17, so let's get to Kenny Galladay first before we move into Robert Woods. But Kenny Galladay, he's a Detroit Lions wide receiver. I have him ranked 16. You have him ranked 16. No disagreement there. ECR has him 17. I like Kenny Galladay. I think he has high end potential.
He does have a high
he has a very high ceiling, and I think he could be a fantastic wide receiver.
Yeah,
I hate the Lions.
I don't blame you.
I really like lately. I've been growing an affinity for TJ Hawkinson. I watched some some videos that people took of him at OTAs, and I'm like, this guy looks fresh.
Legit.
He looks like Gronk.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but then again, I'm like, he's in the Lions offense. So it'll be interesting to see how they utilize Kenny Golladay.
Yeah. That is going to be key. I think if he has the opportunity that a lot of people think he will and is the number one guy in that offense, he will be good. Like his ceiling it'll be higher than 16. He'll finish higher than 16.
Way higher than 16. He could finish in the top 10, maybe even the top 8.
Yeah, I was going to say top 12, definitely.
It just depends on how much they throw, how much they target him, what he gets for
and what his reception percentage is.
Now, are you okay drafting Kenny Golladay at 506? It's like literally right after Cooper Kupp at 505.
Depends on what my team looks
like. Because he would basically be a starter at that point.
Yeah.
Unless you're drafting a flex wide receiver.
That's tough.
Which I don't recommend.
That really depends on what my team looks like, but yeah, I think it would. It's a little high for me, but
it's a smidge high. I would look at him in the 6th round, probably.
Right, he's like a perfect 6th round.
Like if he fell down, he's one of those guys that I see falling in the draft just because of name recognition.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I think in most leagues he'll be there in the 6th round.
Right, definitely. Let's move on to wide receiver 7 to continue our conversation about the Rams. We took a Kenny Golladay side street.
Yeah.
So Kenny Golladay was 16. Robert Woods was 17. Are you doing all right over there, boss?
Man, allergy season, dude.
Robert Woods was number 17 on our rankings. Mine was 15, so I moved him up because of a statistic I'll tell you in a second.
Just a single stat.
Yeah,
that will blow your mind.
It will blow
coming up
your mind.
On ESPN.
Yeah. So Rick had him ranked 19, and I have him ranked 16. So this is what I found interesting, is that over those first 6 weeks, I gave you a statistic about how much they spread the ball around and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
What I found interesting is I was sitting there and I was talking to you and I'm like, oh, here are the numbers. Cooper Kupp was the number 8 wide receiver. And then I was like, and then you go down and Brandon Cooks, the number 24 wide receiver in the first 6 weeks of the season, right? Mm-hmm. And then I was like, where's Robert Woods? I can't find him. I scrolled all the way down to like 60 and I'm like, wow, man, they didn't use him. And then I scrolled up and boom, there's his name floating around number 6.
Number 6.
In fantasy and in through weeks 1 through 6, Robert Woods finished as a number 6 wide receiver. And that was with Cooper Kupp.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That is an interesting stat that probably would have had me move him up too.
Yeah.
The reason I had him lower though initially was because my thought process is there was a time this year where Cooper Kupp was injured, Brandon Cooks was injured, and Robert Woods was the only guy, and he was getting fantasy points. So I thought his total might have been inflated a little bit.
No.
But that stat proves against my point because it shows that when all 3 guys were out there, he was still producing.
Do you want to hear something else interesting about Robert Woods?
What is it?
It's that when he was on the field, people expect, like when Cooper Kupp came off and Brandon Cooks got hurt, and he was like the only guy. I don't know if Brandon Cooks got hurt or not, but Robert Woods is like one of the only targets.
I think he had a concussion.
Offense. Yeah,
at some point in the year.
And Robert Woods was the guy. People expected him to have like this big 20-point week, and nothing happened, and it was just a normal game for. They utilized Robert Woods in a very specific way that basically didn't allow him to have a huge like, oh my god, this guy's
30-point week.
Yeah, like a huge week. I like they don't utilize him like that. And so I think the important thing to note about Robert Woods is that the way that they utilize him is extremely consistent. And I don't think he's going to finish in the top 10 this year, but he is definitely a good wide receiver too, with great consistency. I have him ranked higher than Cooper Kupp just because of that pure fact that he got more targets, he produced better than Cooper Kupp with those targets, and he finished as the number 6 of among wide receivers in the first 6 weeks of the year. So for me, I mean, obviously, you're trying to pick out like little tiny statistics to try to prove your point, but like I mean, for me, I look at Robert Woods, and when they're that closely ranked, you're just trying to. It's like the Stefan Diggs out of Thielen situation.
Yeah, they're very close to each other.
Just trying to figure out what guy is going to go there.
Do you know where Robert Woods is currently getting drafted?
I will take a look.
In the fantasy football calculator.
Robert Woods is 503. So he's getting drafted
so that's like
2 picks ahead of Cooper Kupp and 3 picks ahead of Kenny Galladay.
See, that's tough too. I don't know.
So right now, I mean, what my concern is with the Rams situation, because we talk about Brandon Cooks and one more pick. One more pick.
We'll have another short break from the Rams.
Yeah,
then go right
another
back.
Short break, another detour. But there's 3 wide receivers, and like I said, I only think one of them is going to finish as a wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 1.
See, I think 2 of them will, but I don't think all 3 will.
Like last year, 3 of them, if Cooper Kupp had finished the season, all 3 would have.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. Number 18 on our wide receiver rankings is Julian Edelman.
Dun, da, da, da.
All of us, including the ECR, have him ranked 18. Interesting player. Last year, he came back after a suspension, so you can't look at last year's numbers and kind of dissect where he's going to go as a whole. So the first 4 weeks, because of a PED violation, he missed the first 4 weeks of the season. After that, he was an absolute consistent machine.
There you go.
Julian Edelman finished as the wide receiver 12 over the course of weeks 4 through 17. He was crazy good. And one thing that I like about him is that he wasn't a bust out like guy that gets you 20 fantasy points, 25 fantasy points. He just doesn't do that.
Yeah.
When I looked at his numbers last year and I saw that he got you 12, 13, 14, it was like in a standard league, that's consistent.
It's legit. Yeah.
That's what you want from
especially as a wide receiver too.
You're trying to jump out and find that big time wide receiver, that second wide receiver. And in all reality, you're past Julian Edelman. You're like, I'm not going to go after Julian Edelman. But then you look at his numbers and you're like, wow. My concern with Jules is that he's not going to do that next year. They brought in a lot of wide receivers, and he is Tom Brady's blanket. Him and James White. And so I don't know if Julian Edelman can continue that. He's another year older, and he's one of those small, tiny wide receivers that gets hit across the middle a lot by those big safeties. I don't know if it's going to be a possibility for him to finish as a high-end wide receiver too, but I do like him.
So for me, Edelman's ceiling isn't high at all, but his floor is pretty good.
Yeah.
So if you take Edelman, you're going to get at least half PPR or PPR, especially. Yeah. You're gonna have a decent guy. But as you said, I don't think his ceiling is high at all for the things you said of like him getting a year older, hit up the middle, adding receiver help.
Overhyped. He's at 409,
which is crazy because just a few weeks ago wasn't he going in like the 7th round?
Yep. Which is why I was going to take him. I have no idea.
Now going 409, that's too early.
It's way too early.
It's too early.
Don't draft Julian Edelman. I love you, Jules, but he's a guy I would trade for.
If you
gotta,
but even then, I would still be concerned at first. I wouldn't trade for him before the season started.
Yeah, and back to the Los Angeles Rams. Number 19, Brandon Cooks. Now this is where my opinions changed on Brandon Cooks. I am ranked 21, and you were like, "Woo,
21."
You have him 17. ECR has him 15. Brandon Cooks always finishes as a wide receiver too. No matter what team he's been on, he always
pretty decent wide receiver too.
Pretty decent wide receiver too. People always expect him to break into that wide receiver 1 conversation.
Yeah.
I don't think he can. I don't think he can in this offense. And what scares me about Brandon Cooks is that, prorated, when we look at the first 6 weeks of the season, he was the wide receiver 1 with 33 targets. And you prorate that out, it's like 90 to 100 targets just for him.
Yeah.
Pretty evenly split. But for Brandon Cooks, I there's a reason why I put him behind a man named DJ Moore, and it's because I don't like Brandon Cooks, and I don't think he's going to be that good. When you look at the numbers that I just referenced, weeks 1 through 6, Robert Woods, number 6 wide receiver, Cooper Kupp, number 8 wide receiver, who was all the way down at wide receiver 3.
Is it
at number 24?
Is it your boy?
It's Brandon Cooks.
Ooh.
So, and Brandon Cooks right now, he is the first wide receiver off the board
biggest name
of
sure.
the Los Angeles Rams running backs. 501
receivers.
Cooks. Receivers. Brandon Cooks 501, Woods 503, Cooper Kupp 505.
3 Rams receivers in the 5th round. That's
I know
insane.
it's crazy, and so it's like for me, if you had so you're sitting there in the 5th round, and you want to say you have
or low 4th. Honestly,
you need a wide receiver. You got 3 running backs, 1 wide receiver, right?
It's your draft.
It's not, my draft. And you're sitting there and you're looking. Which guy are you taking? Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, or Brandon Cooks?
I personally am taking Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, I'm taking Cooper Kupp too. No, I'm taking Robert Woods.
Yeah, you're taking.
I'm kind of tough. This is a tough one. I'd have to think
it's close, but
yeah.
I'd probably take Cooper Kupp of those 3 guys.
Yeah, I like Cooper Kupp. I just the numbers. I'm gonna do some more dissecting and see if that's actually something I want to go with. I just think Robert Woods. The big thing too is with Robert Woods is that he didn't get injured, so he doesn't. He's not dealing with an ACL injury, so I probably would take Robert Woods. But Brandon Cooks is a guy that is, to me, if all guys stay healthy. This is the
odd man out.
Is the odd man out, and I think that he is a 5th round, 4th round, 5th round bust that you're sitting there going, why did I draft Brandon Cooks? I should have drafted. I had the opportunity to draft Robert Woods or Cooper Kupp, and I'm drafting Brandon Cooks. And
even if Cooks is the 3rd guy, I don't know how much of a bust he's gonna be because I think Brandon Cooks' floor is still pretty high for the most part. I think. Just because he's Brandon Cooks, he'll get his targets. It's just a matter of, are you willing to take him at the end of the 4th round or early 5th? And he's going to be like that guy that like a top 15 fantasy wide receiver. And I don't know if he will with the amount of talent they have on that offense. Right. For a full season. I think the only way Cooks does do that and is like a top 15, top 12 fantasy wide receiver is if Jared Goff just finally has his breakout Patrick Mahomes MVP type season.
Number 10 and the final guy on our list is DJ Moore.
Your lover.
Oh, I love you, DJ Moore. I have him ranked 20. You have him ranked 22. The ECR has him at 25. So I'm a little in love with
that's 5 spots.
That's with DJ Moore. I like DJ Moore, and here's why. To me, he's a perfect 6th, 7th round draft pick that you take and has breakout potential. That's absolute. That's why I want DJ Moore. Like he literally. This is the situation in Carolina right now. They have Christian McCaffrey.
Who else is on that offense?
No one.
Oh, okay.
DJ Moore was the first wide receiver taken off the draft board in the 2018 NFL draft.
Was it? He was a rookie last year.
He was a rookie last year. He was I think picked 21.
He was the first round
in
pick.
The first round. He was the first wide receiver taken off the board, and DJ Moore was a rookie last year. No one in society even realizes that. So DJ Moore is This is why they let Funchess go. This kid is supposed to take Funchess' role, his job, and who was the other guy? Kelvin Benjamin when he was there back in the day. So DJ Moore had a decent season last year. He had a rookie season basically. He's going to get more targets, he's going to get more production, and he's literally a touchdown hound. So for me, DJ Moore has wide receiver 1 potential for next season. Getting him, he's like, that's a hot take. Who is he going to throw it to?
Nobody, because
Curtis
Cam
Samuel?
Newton. He's not going to throw it to anybody.
Oh, boy.
He's going to run it. No, I'm not completely
I like DJ Moore because he is a talented wide receiver. He's expected to be the one. He had a decent season last year. He didn't have as good a season as Calvin Ridley, but he had a decent. I think DJ Moore would have had a better season had Cam Newton
stayed healthy.
Yeah, broken his arm
for sure,
or shoulder or whatever. But I think that's why I have him 20. And for me, looking at DJ Moore, he's going. You have a plethora of guys ahead of him. So after the men that we talked about, Kenny Galladay, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, and Brandon Cooks, you have Jarvis Landry, Chris Godwin, Tyler Lockett, Tyreek Hill, Calvin Ridley, Mike Williams, Tyler Boyd, Sammy Watkins, Alshon Jeffrey. Those 8 wide receivers are going ahead of DJ Moore. I have him ranked 20 because I think he's going to break out this year, and I will draft him. I would gladly draft him in that round. If you will let
What round is he going?
8th.
See, I do.
See how much I like him? Like that works.
Well, 8th round isn't bad.
Target honestly. DJ Moore, people. Do it.
Yeah, DJ Moore definitely has like that. he does have a large upside. And
you're going to draft him. You're going to draft him in the eighth round, and there's literally no one else in the 8th round. Do you want Will Fuller, Kareem Hunt, Robbie Anderson, Jerick McKinnon, Rashad Penny, Latavius Murray, Allen Robinson? No.
Jerick McKinnon maybe, but
yeah.
But overall, no. I probably would take DJ Moore. I mean,
Drew Brees or DJ Moore?
Drew Brees, bro. I've been a Saints fan for 25 years.
Sorry, I'll let you talk because I like DJ
No, go ahead. I mean, I'm not.
No, I'm good.
I don't want it.
I'm good.
Okay. I'm not going to talk
DJ
too much
Moore
about,
is the great. Go ahead, boss.
You good?
Yeah, I'm not going to interrupt this time.
You sure?
I promise.
Well, okay. I'll talk very slow then. DJ. Okay. No, but DJ Moore.
DJ Moore.
Dang it. All right. I'll try this one last time.
DJ Moore. DJ Moore.
So while Morgan's sitting there with his pants off, I'll give you a slightly more in-depth, not really in-depth,
realistic view.
So DJ Moore does have a very good upside, as you've said.
Right.
The pants are completely off for him. And what I do like about him is opportunity, is what I say about a lot of fantasy players. If they have a good opportunity, they have a good chance of succeeding. DJ Moore has great opportunity. He has a great outlook in that Carolina offense. Mm-hmm. I don't know how much, like you mentioned guys like Devin Funchess and Calvin Benjamin. Those guys, even when they were the guy, never really had good fantasy seasons ever.
No,
Cam Newton doesn't really...
That's the one thing that makes me nervous.
He doesn't really... Yeah, he never really goes to the top guy. He doesn't really throw the ball a lot anyway, and when he does, it's like the McCaffrey on a check down or a screen pass. So I wouldn't hold my breath too much with DJ Moore, but the upside's there. Guy, if you're looking for a sleeper or a potential breakout player, DJ Moore should definitely be on your list.
Yeah, 100%. That'll do it for our 11 to 20 wide receiver rankings for 2019. These are our early rankings, so we will keep them up to date as we approach draft season. And you'll have a tier-based system at some point when our website launches. Be sure to listen next week as we move on to ranking the tight end position, which is the final position before, like I said, we move into our first mock draft of the season.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
It'll be a lot of fun. You got any closing thoughts for the fantasy?
Yeah, I'm just going to take if you guys are in a league and somehow get in a league with Morgan, make sure you take DJ Moore.
No,
so he doesn't.
Do that. I will trade Zeke.
Wow.
That's a lie. I will not trade Zeke.
Yes, you will.
See you Tuesday, fantasy champs.
Peace out.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube and follow us on Twitter @TheFFChamps.